Hey Gigabyte fans, welcome back to Gigabyte's Motherboards and BRIX channel. My name is Leon Chen and today we have another overview and unboxing for you. Today we're going to be talking about our X99-Ultra gaming, and with that I will jump right into it. So on the top you can actually see that it has that Intel chipset logo for the X99 platform, which means this board is able to support Intel's newest i7 Extreme Edition processor. That's the 6950X, the 10-core processor that's just recently been launched. Not only that, this is the first time that this processor, or a 10-core processor, has hit the consumer enthusiast market. As we move over, you can see that this board supports DDR4 at 3333 MHz XMP ready. Make sure to check our QVL or AVL list on our support site to make sure that the modules that you purchase in your local store or retailer has that capability. It has RGB ambient surround LED, dual hybrid fan headers, as well as Intel's USB 3.1. And a lot of other features that we can turn around on the back and go more in depth with. For the most part right now, let me show you guys what the ambient RGB is, or ambient surround LED is all about. Right here you can actually see it in red, and you have the LEDs on the PCIe slots as well as the DIMM slots and between, as we mounted diffusers between these slots, and the VRM area, the rear I/O, as well as that audio amp up zone. Okay, so let's flip the box to the back and we can get more in detail about all the different features Gigabyte has to offer. So we talked about that RGB ambient surround LED. One of the other things I wanted to mention is that we also support third-party or aftermarket LED strips. So Gigabyte has incorporated a pin header directly on the board that can allow you to synchronize your LED strips for your case lighting with the motherboard. So the motherboard can control the patterns and the different glow options that capable with the board, and have the case lights follow along with it. We also have the dual hybrid fan headers. With more and more users trending towards liquid cooling for better performance, our dual hybrid fan headers allow you to actually use either PWM or voltage calibration modes to set fan speed or pump speed depending on your preference. We also support Intel's USB 3.1 design for USB 3.1, and we have it in that Type C standard as well. And as you can see, Gigabyte's 3.1 chip actually supports up to 20 gigabits per second, where the protocol only requires 10. So that means it gives you a lot of wiggle room and a lot of extra bandwidth transferring files from your desktop PC over to your mobile or flash device. It also supports NVMe PCIe Gen 3 with the U.2 port on board. It has dual NICs on this board, so one killer NIC as well as one Intel NIC. And we also have our dual armor ultra durable design, which many of you guys might have seen with our 100 series on a lot of our boards on the PCIe slots, but this time we've introduced this technology over to our DIMM slots as well, our DDR slots, as well as innovating more on top of the PCIe slot armor. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get there. And we have a lot of ultra durable features that many of you are familiar with, such as our all digital power design and our high-end audio capacitors. But one of the features that I'd like to point out would be our anti-sulfur resistors. Basically, this is good for users that have these systems in humid environments or where there's a possibility of sulfurization on the resistors. Oftentimes, when one resistor is damaged on a high-end motherboard like this, users often must replace or change to a new motherboard or get it RMA'd. But having the anti-sulfur resistors on board, it prevents users having to go through this hassle just because of a part that's less than $1. So that's very useful, and it brings more value to the term ultra durability. So let's take all the parts out, and we'll do as we usually do. We'll go over all the accessories that come with it as well as the board after that. So you guys, if you guys have any questions, let us know in the comments below. All right, now that we have all the accessories out and the board on the side, let's dive into this heap of wonderful here and see what you get. So you get a door sign for users that want to keep people out of their rooms when they're busy gaming. You have 3 packs of SATA cables. Now each pack comes with 2 sets of SATA cables, one being a right angle cable and one being a straight cable. So that's a total of 6 cables, with 3 being right angles and 3 being straight cables. We also include, even though that this board is a gaming board, it doesn't mean it's not great for overclocking. So we've also include a CPU power connector that allows you to add an additional 2 more power connectors to your CPU to provide for more stable power, but at the same time also prevent any overcurrent or over voltage. Okay, that's there as well. We also have cable ties, so Velcro cable ties that actually allow you to reduce cable clutter coming out the rear of your desktop PC, or if you want to just tie your mice and keyboard together so it doesn't move around, that's one of the options you can do as well. We have a 2-way SLI bridge. We have the G connector, which we've talked about and many of you are familiar with. Basically, you can connect your front panel pin headers to this, and then you can connect this whole piece, the block, directly to the front panel headers on the board. We have a padded rear I/O for a very premium feel. We also include a 3-way SLI bridge, and we also have this cable that helps connect your third-party aftermarket LED strips to the motherboard. Earlier we were talking about with the RGB ambient surround LED feature from GIGABYTE, you can actually synchronize the LEDs on the motherboard with your LED strips in the chassis or case. So this is very useful for those of you guys that want to have a more customized look and feel to your overall gaming system. We also have a driver disc, the user's manual, as well as a multilingual installation guidebook for you. Okay, so that's here, and also a case badge for you to show that you have a G1 gaming motherboard. One of the other things I'd like to point out, we've also included these indicators or stickers that allow you to wrap it around the SATA cable so you can actually define what the cable is for. So right here on top it shows HDD1, HDD2, HDD4, and we also have ODD for optical disk drive. And you can actually label each of these SATA connectors. So if you actually have a SSD for your boot drive, or if you have a drive for storage, you can write storage, SSD. For your optical disk drive, you can even do Blu-ray or CD-RW or rewriter, anything you want to do. But this is a good way to keep yourself organized on the software side as well as on the hardware side. So very useful for users that want to stay organized and neat inside the case as well. Let's get this set aside and then we'll bring the board in to have a closer look. All right, so with the board here, we know this is an X99 platform, so that means it does support quad channel memory, and earlier we talked about the memory profiles for this is 3333 XMP. Again, make sure to check your QVL or AVL lists for your respective motherboard to make sure the modules you guys purchase out at your local retailers do support it. Right here you can see we have that power connector on the top. For the CPU, we have 2 fan headers, and after we finish all of this, we'll go over and count how many fan headers are directly on the board. Moving around the side, we have our 24-pin ATX power. We have one USB 3.0 front panel pin header. And right here, you can actually see a pin header. This is a GPIO for Thunderbolt. So for Thunderbolt 3, if users wanted to add Thunderbolt 3 onto this board, whether through an add-on card or through a front bay connector, all they have to do is connect this with their device and the board will recognize it as a Thunderbolt device. Okay, so let's look at the side to see how many SATA connectors we have for this board. So right here, we can count them. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So a total of 10 SATA connectors. And at the bottom here, you can actually see it has one SATA Express. So if you choose to populate this SATA Express, you actually will also it also populates the respective 2 SATA ports right here. So even though with the SATA Express populated, you'll still have 8 SATA ports for any types of drives you want to use, mechanical, SSDs, or even optical disk drives. And remember, you have the labels to keep yourselves organized. One of the other things that many of you guys might not be familiar with would be this port up here. This one is actually a U.2 port, and this port has a transfer speed of 32 gigabits per second. Compared to our SATA ports, which are only at 6 gigabits per second, this one is extremely fast. And as we move down the board, we have our front panel pin headers, which we were talking about earlier, and you can use that G connector so you can populate it a lot faster and a lot more conveniently. We have fan headers right next to that. We have another set of USB 3.0, and then we have 2 USB 2.0s next to that, and another fan header right after that. And right here we have TPM, and then right here it's hard to see, but it's actually a Molex connector, so you can have more stable power for PCIe slots. And if I lift it, you can actually get a better, closer look of it. It's actually right there, that Molex connector, okay? And right here next to that Molex connector, you can see a 4-pin connector. And this 4-pin connector is for that cable that we were showing you earlier. It allows you to sync the RGB lighting with the overall board, as well as with your case lighting for your system. All right, and right next to that, you have your front panel audio. So from here, you have your audio zone and all of this casing, so you can actually see the white and the red theme for our G1 gaming. And it's all controllable through the RGB ambient surround LED lighting system from the App Center. All right, so talking about next generation form factors, we have 2 M.2s. One of these, however, is for your Wi-Fi. So you actually can populate and install Wi-Fi onto your motherboard and then route the cables out through the back rear I/O. The other one is for an M.2 storage device, and as you can see, there's 4 different variations or settings that you can have it at. Currently it's set at the 80, but Gigabyte motherboards do support that 22 millimeter width as well as up to the 110 millimeter length. So this one does the 42, the 60, the 80, which is already preset at, and then a 110 for users that want to choose that. So let's swing around to the rear I/O so you guys can have a better look of what connectivity options are available for you. You have, of course, your gold-plated audio connectors as well as an optical connector. You have 4 USB 3.0s here. You can see one is in white, and the reason being is that's our Q-Flash Plus. Now this is useful for users that want to update the firmware or the BIOS of the board and they don't have the memory or CPU installed. They can do that as well. And right above that, you have your dual NICs, one being a killer NIC and one being an Intel NIC. And we have another 2 USB 3.0s and the PS2 on top. And right here we have the antennas or brackets for your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth if needed. And I jumped over this section earlier because I wanted to take some time to explain it. We have 2 different connectors, one being the Type-C, and this is for USB 3.1, and we have another one in red. Users might think that this is a standard USB, but this is a USB 3.1, so it has double the bandwidth, 10 gigabits per second, compared to USB 3.0, which is only at 5 gigabits per second. So overall, on the back I/O here, not including that Type-C connector, you can see that there's a total of 2, 4, 6, 7 USB ports. From the front panel headers, we can count there's a total of 8. 2 USB 2.0s, another 2 USB 3.0, and another one on the right up here for USB 3.0. So 8 USBs on the front for the front header, 7 USBs on the back. That gives us 15 USB connectivity ports overall. And let's go through very quickly and count your fan headers. So we have 1 system fan, a CPU fan, so that's 2. You have another CPU fan here for CPU fan, and the top one was CPU optional, so that's 3. You have 2 system fans on the bottom, so that's 5. So you have a total of 5 fan headers directly on this board. So that's very great for the X99 platform. And that basically wraps up our overview of the X99 Ultra Gaming. If you guys like what you guys saw and you'd like to see more, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Gigabyte's Motherboards and BRIX channel. If you guys have any interest in promotions and contests that Gigabyte runs, be sure to like our Facebook page. Thanks again for tuning in. My name's Leon Chen, and we'll see you next time.